I'm Teresa Bailey, host of In the Money. On today's show, we're talking about small business owners saving for retirement. In 2015, the U.S. Small Business Administration reported that more than 5 million baby boomers aged 55 and older either own businesses or were self-employed. According to a survey this year by Capital One, 47% of entrepreneurs are saving less than 10% of their income, and 1/4 aren't saving at all. Joining us today is Suzy Ward, a retirement plan consultant with Ellis Ward Consulting Group. Suzy's going to share with us a few things we may not know about retirement savings options, as well as how small business owners can leverage retirement plans as a tool for business growth. Stay tuned as we sit down to chat with Suzy Ward.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Today we're discussing small business owners saving for retirement. Joining us is Suzy Ward with Ellis Ward Consulting Group. Welcome to the show, Suzy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with Ellis Ward Consulting Group?
Well, I am a Memphian, and I have been working at Ellis Ward Consulting for a little over 16 years. And we primarily deal with clients with retirement plans, less than 1,000, but mostly small business owners with plans. And we help them stay in compliance with the IRS and the Department of Labor. There's a lot of rules regarding that.
Lots and lots of rules is my understanding.
Yes, there are lots and lots of rules.
So how much of your time is really spent working with the business owner about their plan, and how much of your time is spent sort of in the papers figuring out what rules have changed over time?
I would say most of my time is spent on the paperwork and the compliance side. You know, generally we start out talking to the client, getting their plan set up, and you know, we're there for their questions, you know, during the year. You know, they can call us about any kind of questions or concerns they have. But generally, you know, we're kind of behind the scenes. In fact, a lot of people don't even know that we're around.
Oh, okay. Somewhat invisible.
Yes, we are.
So you work with a lot of small business owners. What types of businesses do you see the most of, and maybe what number of employees do they have?
Probably most of our clients have between, you know, 5 and 50 employees. Probably over half of our clients are that way. We do have clients that have over 100 employees, and we even have some that have close to 1,000 employees.
Oh, wow.
But you know, a lot of our plans are for small, you know, smaller businesses.
Between 5 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain industries that you work with a lot that have plans that are more frequent than others, or is it a good mix?
I think it's a pretty good mix. You know, we do have a lot of attorney offices. They tend to have plans, and we have some in the healthcare industry. But it's a pretty good mix.
Pretty good mix of. And is it just Memphis locations, or?
We actually have clients. You know, most of our clients are in Memphis, but we do have a regional base, and we even have clients as far as California.
Oh, wow. When you do connect with a new client, what are you seeing as some of the reasons why they finally sort of decided, okay, I'm going to put a retirement plan together for my business and my employees?
Generally, it's for their own personal retirement plan, savings for themselves. You know, business owners are kind of limited on what they can do outside of plans. There's a lot higher limits within plans for them to save. It's also a way for them to offer a benefit to their employees. You know, a lot of times if you have an employee that's, you know, coming on and maybe they're looking at another job, you know, the one that may have the retirement plan may win. So it's a retention tool oftentimes. And probably the other thing that they really like to do is have some tax savings as far as just from the employer side.
So how do you work with them to show them the tax savings on a plan?
Generally, we work together with the advisor that's going in and maybe even their accountant, kind of sit down and see how that would really work out. If they had a plan, what kind of savings they would get, how much they were going to get as far as their own personal retirement benefit, and what it's going to look like for the employees.
So you can show them sort of if you do this plan, this is what the impact will be on cash flow, or what they'll be able to save?
Both. A lot of times we'll show more than one scenario because there's a lot of options within a plan as far as, what you can do, for your employees or what you don't want to do for your employees. Mm-hmm. And so we can show them a couple different scenarios and, kind of let them decide what they like.
So you mentioned limits for the business owner. What did you mean by limits for the business owner? How much they can contribute, or? Right, there are some limits to how much you can contribute into a retirement plan. From a personal side for employees, the IRS has set limits for salary deferrals. There's also some limits as far as how much they can put in as an employer contribution that's limited by a percentage of compensation. And so those are the limits we're talking about when we're looking at a plan. And what are some of the reasons, now that we know the statistics from the opening of the show, that so many business owners are somewhat neglectful in their own retirement savings? What are some of the reasons that you found that small business owners don't want to move forward with a plan? Sometimes I think it's kind of the unknown. If I set up this plan, what's it going to cost me to put this plan in? How much time am I going to have to spend working on this plan? If you have a company that only has maybe 5 to 50 employees, you probably don't have an HR person in your office that's just working on the plan. And they really don't have time to work on the plan. They actually have a job. Other than the plan. Other than the plan. And so, what they really, are worried about is, how much time am I really going to have to spend on this? And what we try to do is try to make it be something that's not a burden to administrate the plan. And so we're really there to let them know what the rules are, inform them this is when this is due, make sure they're not getting in trouble with the Department of Labor or the IRS. And, it's a lot easier for them to administer. But that's probably the number one thing. And I think the other, item that they're really worried about is, okay, I put this plan in, how much money am I going to have to put in every year? And I think they're worried about the flexibility that they may have with the plan, from year to year. Because what happens if I have a really good year this year and then, my business isn't doing so well next year? What does that look like? So cash flow becomes a real concern. It does. And so you can show them with the projections that you talked about what good years and bad years might look like with the plan setup that you're discussing with them. Exactly. When you're talking about plan design, there's a lot of options for them. There's a lot of flexibility. And we try to show them that, to say, if you're having a really good year, this is what you can do. If it's not a good year, you're still going to be able to do this. You can reduce your cost. So they're not really locked in, to a certain situation, or can you show them possibilities, but then also if the plan's just not working, is there, a way out? Is that discussed as part of the plan setup? A lot of times that is. Generally when you set up a plan, there is a lot of upfront time and effort put into that on their part. And, if you put a plan in, you really should have a commitment where hopefully, it's going to last at least 3 to 5 years. The IRS kind of frowns upon starting a plan and then the next year you terminate the plan. That's not really looked upon favorably. The IRS frowns on a lot of things. They do frown on a lot of things. So we try to explain that, but we do also try to work into the plan design flexibility so that there's not any issue there. We have to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment with Suzy. Stay with us.
Preventing wildfires. That's all Smokey wants for his 70th birthday.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. If you're just joining us, we're talking about saving for retirement and owning a small business. Today we're joined by Suzy Ward from Ellis Ward Consulting Group. Thanks again for being with us today, Suzy.
Thanks.
When we left off, we were talking about restrictions and flexibility of getting out of a plan, and if I'm the person deciding to do the plan, you have now talked me into wanting to move forward. So maybe something we can do right now is walk through, if I've made the decision as a business owner to put in place a retirement plan, what are the steps that we would follow together?
Well, the first thing we would do is get your plan document together, and that would require going through a questionnaire, basically trying to figure out exactly what you want the plan to do for you. You know, how do you want it to look for your employees, and you know, how much flexibility you want in that plan. And so,
what are some of the questions that are on that questionnaire?
Some things about, you know, what kind of requirements do you want an employee to have before they can enter the plan? What kind of vesting requirements do you want to have before someone can have access to their
Now,
money?
vesting, I know a lot of people out there have probably heard that word, but maybe don't understand what it means. What does vesting in a plan mean?
So any employer contribution that's put into the plan would have what's called a vesting schedule, which means basically how long do I have to be there before I have access to that money when I leave.
Okay.
So for instance, you know, if you are only there a year, most likely when you leave, you're not going to have any of that employer money.
So if I'm the employer and I'm putting money into a plan, then it's a way to, well, let me ask you this question. If someone leaves within that 1 year and they haven't vested in the plan, what happens to the money that I put into the plan on behalf of that one employee that leaves?
So that money would go into what would be called a forfeiture account, and that employer would be able to use that money for plan expenses or to reallocate it to the participants.
Okay, so the longer my employees stay with me, the more benefit they get out of the plan and the money I put into it.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so what else on the questionnaire?
So you would add, you know, we would find out, you know, what kind of, you know, do you want to put matching in? Do you want to have a profit sharing, which, you know, profit sharing, just that word kind of scares employers. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with profits whatsoever. It's just an employer contribution. You know, kind of find out, you know, what they want to do in that regards. You know, they want to have some sort of requirement for that? A lot of employers want to have the employee be active at the end of the year and have 1,000 hours. You know, you kind of don't want to have to pay your terminated employee.
So you would have a part in the plan that would say this person has to be employed by me and have worked 1,000 hours or a certain number of hours by the end of that year.
Yes.
Okay.
Employers tend to like that. That's a pretty common requirement in a plan. And that's usually, you know, those are the main things that we kind of look for when we get the plan document together. A plan document must be signed. If you don't have a signed plan document, you don't have a plan.
Okay. That's not super surprising. At what time of the year does that plan document have to be signed, or what are the restrictions around when?
You know, really, you can put a plan in at any time. As
Okay.
long as a plan has been signed and has an effective date before the end of the year, you can always make an employer contribution for that current year.
Okay, great. Anything else on that questionnaire of note that maybe is a point of a lot of conversation for you with your clients?
Probably just, you know, the type of salary deferrals they want to put in. Do they want to add Roth, or do they want to just have just a regular pre-tax salary deferral? You know, are they going to put matching in? Is the plan going to be safe harbor?
Safe harbor, that's a word that we hear tossed around a lot. And in your mind, really, safe harbor, what does safe harbor accomplish, and what would an employer need to know about safe harbor?
Well, a safe harbor contribution is a contribution that would be required to be put into the plan each year. And that safe harbor contribution allows the usually the business owner or the highly compensated, those who are making the most money in the company, to be able to put in the maximum salary deferrals for themselves each year without having to have a refund. And the reason they would have a refund
Refunds sound good, though. Is it a good refund?
No, it's not a good refund. It's because you failed discrimination testing. The IRS has a lot of rules in place. They allow you to discriminate up to a certain point, but after that point, they say that the plan just looks like it's for the benefit of the employer, not of the employees. And so you get that refund back, and it would include taxation for you, and if you don't make it timely, it would also include a penalty, which no one likes.
So you have to issue money back out of the plan and give it back to the business owner.
Yes, which no one usually likes, surprise money that's taxable to them.
Got it. So the solution is the safe harbor, which does sound like a nice word.
It is,
Phrase.
yes. And you know, it just kind of guarantees you that, yes, I can put in the maximum salary deferral that the IRS allows for that particular year, and I'm not going to have a refund at the end of the year.
Okay, so you pay your employees into the plan in order to be able to put the maximum amount for yourself into the plan.
That would be correct. You can either do that through a matching contribution or 3% to all the employees that are eligible.
Okay, great. So if we've gone through that questionnaire and we've made all of our decisions, then what happens?
Well, then we would go out to the employer and they would go through the enrollment process with their employees. So their employees would be notified that we have a plan now. They would know the plan provisions, you know, how do you get into the plan, what are your investment options, which would be something they would probably talk to you about. Fortunately, I do not have to decide the investment options.
So you don't do any of the investment discussions?
I try to stay away from that.
Okay. You just keep people compliant with the rules?
Yes, my job is to keep them out of trouble with the IRS and the Department of Labor.
The rules do sound scary. How is it that your consulting group really adds value in that scenario?
Well, as we talked about before, most places do not have a dedicated HR person that has a lot of experience with the 401k plans. I have a lot of experience with 401k plans, and in fact, I have to go through 16 hours of continuing ed each year just to keep up with the new rules that are coming out each year. Oh, wow. And so what we're doing is we're going out there and just making sure, this is the notice that you have due right now, letting them know what it is. You need to send it out by this certain date. We're doing all the testing, and also there's a tax form that has to be filed on an annual basis. We prepare that for them.
Interesting. We have to take another short break. We'll be right back with Suzy Ward.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
To always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. We were just discussing retirement plans with Suzy Ward, and now that we've made a decision to move forward, what that process looks like. So Suzy, we were discussing the enrollment meeting with the employees. What is your part in that meeting?
My part would be to be there just to answer any questions that the participant may have as far as the plan provisions go, kind of help the advisor also if they're not clear on what the rules are. Just to answer any questions, really.
So in that meeting, are you backup support?
I really am.
So you don't lead the meeting with the employees?
I usually do not lead those meetings.
Okay. And then once the employees are enrolled, where do you go from there with the plan?
So I would be in contact with the employer and just make sure that they don't have any questions, especially on the first payroll that they have, because a lot of times it's the first time they've ever had a plan and they don't really know what to expect. So I help them with getting that first payroll submitted. Ongoing, any questions that the participants may come to them with, that they don't know what the answer is, they would call me and I would help them through that. And then I'd also keep them in compliance throughout the year, making sure all their notices and forms are done timely.
Notices and forms. So what are some of the typical notices that must go out associated with the plan?
So we were speaking of safe harbor before. There's a safe harbor notice that has to go out annually. There's also some notices depending upon the investment options that have to go out annually. There's a fee disclosure that has to go out annually. And in addition, depending on some other plan provisions they have, there may be some additional notices. If they change investments, there's some blackout notices oftentimes. And then there's the Form 5500, which is basically the tax form that has to be filed with the IRS on an annual basis.
So every year. So how often are you in contact with the business owner? Do you have a system or routine where even if there are no notices, you're meeting with the business owner and the plan sponsor?
We try to meet with the business owners at least once a year, but during the year, depending upon the size of their business and how active their plan is, some of my clients I speak to on a daily basis.
Oh, really? Daily?
I do. But probably for, most of my clients, it's probably once every couple months, there's an issue that comes up that we talk about the plan.
What are some of the creative ways in which retirement plans are used? I know one of the things that advisors often look at if there is a large age gap, perhaps between the owner and the employees.
Right, that would be something that you like. It's called cross-testing. That's a way of allocating the employer contribution, which allows for those who are older to receive more than the rank and file employees that you have. Business owners tend to like that.
A benefit for being older, yeah.
Yes, and making more money. So between the two, it works out well for them. The employees are getting a substantial benefit, but the employers are definitely getting more of a benefit than they would if you were just doing a pro rata allocation.
So what are some of the things that you think often hold people back that sort of based on your experience in this world, and we've touched on a couple of them already, what are some of the, let's say the top 3 things that people are most afraid of with retirement plans that you think really aren't as big a deal as they think they are?
I think the amount of time they're going to have to spend administering the plan. I think the cost, there are some upfront costs to the plan. I think that they shy away from that. And I think just the fact that they have to be committed to this plan, it's not something you can start, in January and then all of a sudden it's May and go, oh, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. It is a commitment to have a plan, and I think those are the things that they're most concerned about.
How much time should they be prepared to spend on the plan?
I think, the first month that you have a plan is going to be the month that you spend the most time on your plan. And it's, it's probably going to be, 10 hours or something on that first, but I just think,
not too bad.
But I think, it's going to be over several days. So, there's going to be several days that you're going to have to deal with the plan. Probably every day there's going to be something that needs to be done or a question that needs to be answered. But I think on an ongoing basis, there's just a little bit of additional time to submit the contributions when payroll is run. So I don't really think it's that much time. At the end of the year, we request an employee census so we can do all of our testing.
And what's on a census?
So that would be Social Security number, name, date of birth, date of hire, hours worked, and compensation. Usually their payroll company, or if they're doing their own payroll in-house, there's a report that's already set up that can be run from that. So it's just a matter of them finding that in their payroll system.
And sending it.
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as cost, you mentioned cost may be a barrier for someone to move forward. How is cost, is it something, there's a set flat fee for most plans, or is that something that's flexible as well?
That is somewhat flexible. When you start up a plan, there is a cost to have a plan document drafted. Currently, for small business owners, there is a tax credit for that, so much of that cost can be taken back through a tax credit. Ongoing, either the employer can pay for the administration cost, or they can put that onto the employees, and it just comes out of pro rata from everyone's account. So I think, you know, there's options available there, so there is some flexibility. And just because you say as an employer, I'm going to pay all of the fees, you know, if things progress and maybe you have a bad year and maybe that is something that you're going to have difficulty paying, you can always change your mind on that too, and, you know, have it come out of the employees' accounts.
Okay, so everyone in the plan can share the cost of the plan.
Right, and you know, and I found that when you do that, you know, you're really only talking about a few extra dollars a year that you're putting onto the employees. So it's generally not.
Sounds pretty cost effective to do a plan. So if setting up the plan, you get a tax. Is it a deduction or
it's a credit? It's a credit.
Okay, so you get a credit to set it up, and then if everybody in the plan can share the cost, then that seems like it's pretty cost effective.
It is. I would say that it is cost effective.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think there probably is a little bit different opinion as far as what an advisor thinks is neat and cool about a plan and what you do. But are there any features of a plan that you think if business owners really knew about, they would take advantage of?
I think probably one of the things is Roth deferrals. You know, that's a big buzzword right now is Roth, and advisors love Roth.
We do.
You love to talk about Roth. You know, all 401k plans offer, you know, traditional pre-tax salary deferrals, but the Roth is a feature advisors like. There's also, you can also have participant loans within the plan. As you mentioned before, cross-testing or, you know, having some maybe age-weighted formula is something advisors also like to talk about.
We do.
Those are all features that, you know, from our side as being a third-party administrator, that is just something that is a feature in the plan, and we can put it in or we can take it out.
So you don't have any favorites?
I don't have any favorites. I could probably sell you either way.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Suzy. Today we discussed tools and tips for small business owners saving for retirement. Working with a retirement plan professional like Suzy can make navigating the retirement waters much easier. Whether a business owner needs to save more cash now in order to retire later, or offer a retirement plan to attract and retain top talent. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to Suzy Ward with Ellis Ward Consulting Group, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more shows, follow us on YouTube or Facebook at Germantown Municipal Television. You can also visit our website at gmtvonline.org. Each person's financial situation is unique. Before making any decisions, speak to a financial professional to see if our discussions today are in your best interest. We'll see you next month. I'm Teresa Bailey, and now you are in the money.